G'day, ZiggyD here, and Path of Exile's patch 0.10.6 is out, and that means I'm back this week with another skill gem first impression and guide video for you guys, this time focusing on the new Totem ability, Searing Bond. So Searing Bond is a pretty interesting skill. You guys probably saw the little theory crafting session I did on it. It looks like a lot of fun. Basically the general premise of it is that you put down the totem and then a fiery bond attaches the totem to you, and then if you put down another Searing Bond totem or even a third Searing Bond totem, if you happen to have Ancestral Bond and one of the new uniques that came out this week, then the Searing Bond not only connects to you, from each totem to you, but also from each totem to every other totem. So you can either have like a kite shape, or you can have a triangle shape, or just the single Searing Bond if you're just using the one totem. So the footage you're seeing in the background is just a little vial kill I did while leveling up with Searing Bond. It's been fairly effective so far to level with. I've been having a lot of fun with the skill, and I've just unlocked the Ancestral Bond keystone passive as well, so I'm able to use two Searing Bond totems at once, and they do a ton of damage while leveling. Obviously not able to test it in endgame yet to see how effective it is in the long term, but so far it's feeling pretty solid. Kind of awkward to use at times, you have to get into the practice of positioning your character right, but overall I think it has potential in very, very niche builds. At the very least, it's kind of a fun skill to play around with. So now let's jump into talking about the mechanics of the actual skill and what it interacts with. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is actually buffing the damage of Searing Bond, how you go about buffing the damage. There's only two ways, because it doesn't actually deal sort of like a flat fire damage. Although it says fire damage in the tooltip, it actually counts as burning damage, and this has been confirmed in the official thread for this skill on the forums. So what this means is that the only ways to buff the actual damage of this skill is to increase its level, so you can do that just by leveling it normally, or by putting in a weapon with plus level fire gems, like this Searing Touch staff that I'm using here. So that's a pretty good way to buff the damage, but that's more of a while you're leveling sort of thing, and then endgame, because you can get it to level 22 to have a bit higher damage there. The other way is to use burning damage passives or mods. So if I go here on the passive tree and scrolling, we've got Pyromaniac and the two burning damage nodes here. There's 30 and then another 15 and 15% increased burning damage. Now there's another place where that is just over here behind this immolation node here. We've got burning damage and burning damage for another 20% there. And I believe there is one more down here near the Marauder somewhere. We've got, that's just ignite duration, so that won't actually help so much. So you have a few ways of increasing the damage, and for example, like with Searing Touch, it also has 70% increased burning damage, so you can buff it out a fair way. However, you can't equip any support gems to Searing Bond to increase its damage. You can't put added lightning on it, you can't put faster casting on it, or anything like that. You can put faster casting with the skill and it'll make you cast the totem faster, but because Searing Bond isn't actually like an attack or a spell in the sense that it doesn't hit enemies, it's just more of a degen. So that means fast casting won't actually increase the DPS of Searing Bond at all. And on that note, there's very few things you can link Searing Bond to, and I think that's what's causing a lot of players very quickly to jump to the conclusion that Searing Bond is terrible. The support gems you actually can add to it are pretty much just ones that affect the totem. So you've got like increased duration for the increasing the length of time that the totem stays up, and then obviously faster casting to cast the totems a bit faster. Then you've got blood magic, so if you want to cast on blood magic, and I believe also reduced mana, so very few skills, just maybe making it a bit easier to cast the totems more quickly and have them last a little bit longer, but nothing you can actually do to the like the fire degeneration, the burning itself. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the interaction between Searing Bond and other sources of burning damage, because in the past these things haven't stacked. However, they've now changed that. So the first thing I want to point out is that if I put two totems like this, the two Searing Bond arc lines will actually stack together. So it is doubling the damage when one mob is hit by both of these beams. So Searing Bond can stack with Searing Bond. That's the first one to know. The next one to know is that Searing Bond can also, if I can put these here with these dying, can also stack with the fire track burning damage. See, everything kind of died a bit early. Here we go. We can show it with these ones, but you can really increase your damage out by stacking the burning ground damage with Searing Bond. Now it also stacks with ignite burning damage as well. So if you're not a dual totem Templar and you can, or someone else maybe crits with fire damage and the enemy is actually set on fire from that crit, You can stack that with Searing Bond and with Fire Traps, and also with Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire also stacks. So all of these different sources of burning damage can stack. The next thing is Flammability. The Flammability curse will increase the burning damage of that through, lowering their resistances. So I had to do a fair bit of research. I actually thought that wouldn't work, but researching through a lot of Righteous Fire threads and builds and things like that, Flammability worked with Righteous Fire, and since Searing Bond is very similar in Righteous Fire to the way it functions, I'm very sure that Flammability also works with Searing Bond. Again, this is a first impressions video, so if there's any little things that are not quite right, then hopefully I'll correct them over time and you guys can let me know about them. So now I just want to talk a little bit about usage. You guys saw me use it a little bit there, and with the single totem in Val. Obviously you want to cast them on the opposite side of mods, or you can cast them on one side and then kite the mobs, and the mobs will die as they get caught in the beam. This can be fairly effective, and then you can sort of play around with, if you're fighting a large pack and you want a large amount of AoE, you can cast in a triangle shape, and then you'll, as long as the totems don't die, I recasted them. So let's try this again here, so I can have a bit of a better example. With the triangle shape, you're going to have an increased amount of AoE because you can hit more mobs. But if you want to instead say you're fighting an elite or a boss, then you can cast 2 totems behind that mob, so right on top of each other, and both beams will hit it and do quite a lot of damage as well. So this is one way to do it. You can sort of cast them right next to each other and then run around having the stacked beams deal a lot of damage, or you can spread them out and have, the beams hit them separately but do damage like that. Now another thing to note is if you see that skeleton there, before he even gets touched by the beam, around the ends of the beams is a little area of effect for the burning damage. So that means anything behind the totems, or just here behind you, or behind this totem, or anywhere in that area around the totem or yourself. So any of the endpoints will take burning damage. Now I assume because the actual beams themselves stack, that also means that stacks on me. So if I have these 2 totems here, then I'm getting this area effect damage from this one totem, and then I'm getting it from the second totem here. So you can sort of play around with that a little bit. That means you don't need to cast directly behind. You can sort of cast right on top of if you want to, and play around with that. Now, the build I'm playing has been pretty fun so far. I've been having a lot of fun, sort of Spider-Manning my way along mob packs like this. So I can sort of keep moving and web slinging, if you know what I'm talking about, between each of the totems here, and it's quite fun to play around with. It's a very interesting skill. I'm very happy it's been added into the game overall. We'll see how it pans out in terms of long-term viability, but so far it's been very strong. But that might just be due to the fact that I've just equipped this Searing Touch and I've just only got the dual totems and in a lower difficulty, so maybe over time it won't be so good, but we'll see. We'll see. Interesting skill overall. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.